أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. My dear viewers, brothers, sisters, and lovers of Imam al-Husain alayhi salam, Salamun alaykum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And welcome to the 10-night series on Ahlulbayt TV titled Karbala's Inspiring Spirits, where on every episode, inshallah, we aim to learn and discuss a few traits that we can learn from some of the holy personalities that we see in Karbala. Inshallah, every episode I will be joined by some amazing guests where we will recite nohas, poetry, latmiya, in honor of the individual that we are discussing on that particular episode. And today's episode is titled Learn Motherhood from Rabab, salamullahi alayha. And I am honored to be joined by my two dear brothers, Husein and Abbasali Bandali. Salamun alaykum.
Alaikum salam.
How are you both doing?
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. Thank you for having us.
No, thank you so much for taking the time out. I know the time coming up to Muharram with various majalis and everything you guys attend with your busy schedule. So thank you so much for blessing us with your presence. And so just to begin, when you hear the name of Bibi Rabab salamullahi alayha or Hazrat Ali Asghar alayhi salam, what are the thoughts that come to your mind first?
Well, to start off with, obviously, it's the struggle of a mother, saying goodbye to a child, that's only 6 months old, and the heartache and the sacrifice that she gave was so great. She lost everyone, as did all the women and children in Karbala, and there was still a journey ahead for them. So I think it's their resilience, their patience, their ability to see, even through that hardship of losing their loved ones, to keep strong and see the ultimate goal, the ultimate beauty that Allah had planned. So yeah, I think it's just bravery, strength, and patience. I think are the main things that I notice. Yeah.
SubhanAllah, well put. Abbasli, what about yourself?
I try to, from a different perspective, try to look at it as how the brutality of the enemy that Imam Hussein was facing on that day, that they could stoop to such a level that Shimr could order an attack on a 6-month-old baby, that even some of the army questioned that, is this what we're here to do? Yet they still, Hurmala still pulled that arrow and fired it at this baby. To think what kind of mindset these people had, that they would attack an innocent child, defenseless child. To look at it at that point of view as well, it's why the fire burns within us every year on, year out. Why everyone attends for ziyarat every year as well. So yeah.
No, really, really well put, and an amazing two different perspectives. One coming from the mother and one actually coming from the NEB's point of view. Like, how could they? Yeah. How could they? There must be something so dark, so evil within them that allowed them to convince themselves that what they were doing is okay. Because essentially, sometimes that's what happens when you get to such a level of darkness in your soul. You almost forget what's right and wrong, but rather you convince yourself that what you're doing is the right thing to do. Yeah. But that's how much you've been polluted by whoever is your leader or whoever you choose to follow. So thank you so much for that. I think just at the beginning, I think it'll be best to begin the show with a recitation from the both of you, if you don't mind. You guys recite so well, mashallah. We pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blesses you, your parents, and gives you more and more, inshallah. So please, whenever you're ready, it'd be lovely to hear something to start the show, inshallah.
Inshallah. So the kalam we are about to recite is from the perspective of Bibi Rabab telling Hazrat Ali Asghar before he left the camp. Obviously, this is a poetic way of saying it, but she was telling Hazrat Ali Asghar that go out and do your best. Like all the soldiers before, they all went and gave their all, gave their best to serve their Imam. So she's telling Hazrat Ali Asghar, go and do your best, and anything that your father asks you, do it. And so it makes you think, like, how amazing were these people that they a 6-month-old child was also not taken lightly, not taken as someone who was, you know, insignificant. He was also, you know, one of the martyrs, one of the people who gave his life. And so, yeah, that's the premise.
Thank you so much. نستعود الصلوات على محمد وآل محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم.
रबाब कहती थी असग़र कमाल कर देना, रबाब कहती थी असग़र कमाल कर देना, रबाब कहती थी असग़र कमाल कर देना। हुसैन जो भी कहे, हुसैन जो भी कहे, मेरे लाल कर देना, रबाब कहती थी असग़र कमाल कर देना, रबाब कहती थी असग़र कमाल कर देना। तमाम रात यही लोरियां थी मादर की, तमाम रात यही लोरियां थी मादर की, ये जान मेरी है बेटा संभाल कर देना, रबाब कहती थी असग़र कमाल कर देना, रबाब कहती थी असग़र कमाल कर देना। हुसैन चूम के गर्दन पे सर की कहते रहे, हुसैन चूम के गर्दन पे सर की कहते रहे, ये किससे सीखा है गर्दन को ढाल कर देना, रबाब कहती थी असग़र कमाल कर देना, रबाब कहती थी असग़र कमाल कर देना। रबाब दुनिया को हैरत है तेरी हिम्मत पे, रबाब दुनिया को हैरत है तेरी हिम्मत पे, ये कब सहता कले जानी काल कर देना, रबाब कहती थी असग़र कमाल कर देना, रबाब कहती थी असग़र कमाल कर देना। कहाँ थमाने कोई कह न पाए कौन हो, कहाँ थमाने कोई कह न पाए कौन हो, यूं 6 महीनों को 18 साल कर देना, रबाब कहती थी असग़र कमाल कर देना, रबाब कहती थी असग़र कमाल कर देना।
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad.
Muhammad.
Jazakallah. Thank you boys so much. It was beautifully read and such an apt kalam for this particular topic. So thank you so much. And literally what the poem says, where Bibi Rabab salamullah is telling her son Ali Asghar to go do your best, as you said, and that's always what a mother wishes for, isn't it? For their child, to whatever they do their best in. And one point that comes to my mind is, we all know that we are the product of what our parents have raised us to be, right? They have put this foundation in us. They have put the love of wilaya in us. And what a mother Bibi Rabab salamullah was or must have been, that even within 6 months of bringing up Hazrat Ali Asghar or Hazrat Abdullah in some riwayat, that when he heard, when the 6-month-old heard his imam call, not his father, but his imam call, Hal min Nasir Surun, that he made a noise to say that I'm here, I'm ready. Imagine what she must have instilled in him at such a young age to bring that out. And I think that's something that should, something that we can really learn from, especially, and we can take this in a holistic view in terms of being parents, how we can learn from her being a parent, So there's a lot of lessons to be taken in that, how to bring up your child, what to teach them, or how to go about, looking at what akhlaq. And as it is, as you know, nowadays, it's a dangerous world to bring up a child, right? With all these lessons going on in school, where they have to be exposed to the LGBTQ community because of this. That's what they do. So what are your thoughts on that, and bringing up a child in this day and age, and how we could maybe learn from Bibi Rabab and Imam Husein as that?
So like you said, Hazrat Ali Asghar, answered that call. And, in today's society, it's difficult to raise children where you feel confident and comfortable that they will also answer the call of their imam when he comes. So, let alone ourselves. I think it's constantly reminding ourselves and our family, and if you have children, your children, that the lessons that we learn from the story of Karbala, from the many personalities, but in this case specifically, Hazrat Ali Asghar, that no matter how young your children are, or no matter how young you are, you still have a duty to answer that call. And it's what level you're at, and making sure that whatever level you are at in your life, in your age, in your knowledge, whatever it may be, but constantly always remind yourself, constantly always be in a trajectory of growth and learning about your imams, understanding why we believe in them, why their message that they've brought to us is true, and having that conviction, having that certainty, I guess, at whatever level that may be, will stand us in good stead, and our families in good stead to answer that call when it comes to us. So I think that's what we can learn, that from the story of Hazrat Ali Asghar, that no matter what stage you are in your life, obviously we're not all at that level, but that the call is incumbent upon all of us, no matter exactly who we are or where we are in our lives.
Yeah, exactly. Very well said. And so I know you guys aren't parents yet, and inshallah, you pray that Allah blesses you with the most beautiful children, inshallah. But when it comes to the idea of being a parent, in fact, it'd be interesting to know from your point of view, where you are not parents yet, how do you see a future of raising a child? What would your priorities be?
So like you mentioned, times are changing, and the childhood that we had is going to be very different to the children of today, the way in which they're going to be raised, and also the exposure that they'll have, especially living in the West. And if you put it in perspective, I think that it's more the parents that need to guide their children from the offset, and the sort of things that they expose them to, the amount of limitations they place on, for instance, the media, how much access they have to the media, especially at a very young age. Once they reach that age where they're out in the open, in public schools and things like that, it's going to be very difficult to monitor those sort of things. So it's very important that while they're young, to instill in them where the limitations are, where the boundaries of our religion, we don't cross over in those into those areas. And one of the big factors, especially when I can speak for myself and maybe a little bit my brother as well, but what we were exposed to when we were younger is constantly being reminded of events like Karbala, events like Ghadir, and those key events within our religion that molded the way in which we view the Ahlulbayt and stuff like that, and use them as our role models. People in schools ask, who's your role model? There are only 14 role models for me in the Masumeen, and that's something that we have to carry on through generations. And every day it needs to be a reminder for our kids, especially when you're a parent. That's what you need to be enforcing on them and instilling in them, that love for the Ahlul Bayt.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, lit nail on the head, man, 100%. I think it's so important that you lay the foundation. So yes, right from the beginning, even like something that I do with my children, Nara Hedri is like every day. It's like, wajib. You have to do it.
It has to be there.
And not wajib by Sharia, but rather just as a habit, because we want, and that's a way to inculcate that love within them. And you're right. The way we were reminded about events of Karbala and attending majalis, because back when we were young, there wasn't many English majalis, right? It was mainly Urdu, and our parents would attend those centers, but we would still have to go. But I think what we would appreciate is the atmosphere, right? You have the marsiya, then you have the majlis, then you have the matam, and you take part in that, and that connects you, right? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is all merciful at the end of the day. Once your parents and we as parents take intentions that this is what I want to do, then Allah will help at the end of the day, right? But it's important to make that intention. And this is something that 100% I would see that Bibi Rabab and Imam Husein alayhi salam 100% would have done that. Their house and their atmosphere, like I've spoken on previous episodes as well, that it would be such a beautiful and peaceful atmosphere, in their house, as you can imagine, just speaking about, probably stories from Rasulullah's time, Imam Ali's time, and they would just, that's all life would be for them. And what a beautiful life it is, right? And one thing that, speaking about Imam Ali and Rasulullah, a lot of us think that, it was only like religion for them. Though it was a big, massive, main part of their life, they used to still have a laugh. There's narrations of a story, which I can't remember 100%, but there was where Rasulullah and Imam Ali alayhi salam made a little fun of each other, but in a nice way, right? But so, which tells us that actually you can enjoy life as well, have a laugh, it's okay. And so when you when you kind of bring this into your children, they'll understand that, okay, it's not that bad, and not saying that religion is bad, but that balance is always important, right?
Exactly.
So another thought that comes to my mind, and I want us to put ourselves in the minds of Bibi Rabab now, and bring yourself to when you're standing inside the tent, and Imam Husein alayhi salam is now bringing your 6-month son, who's been, has got a spear in a 3-pronged arrow in his neck, bleeding. Now that tragic event has taken place, and what would a mother in today's day and age do? If we think about our mothers, right? It's a moment of hysteria, right? It was a moment of shock. You could faint. You just don't know what's happened, what has just gone on. But Bibi Rabab, Salamullah, had stayed strong to a different level, right? To a level you would not expect, because, and again, this is the tawakkul that they had. That's the faith in Allah that they had, knowing that this was a sacrifice for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for the sake of the religion, right? But what do you think, our mothers today, compared to Bibi Rabab, in complete different reactions, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's not something we're accustomed to, right? So, and I think it's, again, the purpose of the Ahlul Bayt and their family is to teach us these lessons of understanding, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's greater plan. And so, obviously not to that same extent, but I think it's a lesson to, mothers perhaps, or, parents in general who maybe lose their children at birth or very young. In everything that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has done, throughout history, it's always been there for a lesson, especially when it comes to the Ahlul Bayt. And so, the lessons are there to to show parents who go through a similar loss of losing a young one, of, you know, understanding that there's a greater reason. Obviously, the situation itself is very difficult and very traumatic, but it's understanding that you're not alone. Sometimes when you go through trauma or something difficult, it's very easy to feel like this has just happened to me and that's it. Nobody's ever experienced what I'm experiencing. But if we hold, you know, the lessons and the teachings of the Ahlulbayt, and especially, you know, during Muharram, the lessons of Karbala close to our hearts and make them part of our daily life, then God forbid if something like that were to happen to us or to our families, or, you know, we have a sense of understanding that, you know, Bibi Rabab also went through this, you know, Imam Husain also went through this difficulty, and it's my duty as one of their followers, one of their, you know, inshallah, one of their, you know, followers, that they accept that, you know, they also went through this tragedy. And so because of that, that will give me strength to go through this process as well. So I think it's taking the lessons and then applying them to ourselves, like we've spoken about already. But I think it's hard to say because I've not ever experienced it myself.
Of course.
But it's and I'm sure, and it's not an easy thing to go through. But again, it's just learning from the best and how did the best deal with it. And you know, we're not perfect, but that's the role models that we're trying to emulate and trying to take lessons from. I guess.
Absolutely. And as we know that, obviously you mentioned the Ma'sumin earlier, and, you know, Bibi Rabab doesn't technically fall under that category, so she would be a fallible, right? Somebody we can relate to, a normal human being, right? Normal emotions, normal. So we can definitely relate to that. And so, you know, when she returns to Medina, she's on her own. She's alone, right? Everyone, Imam Husain, Ali Asghar, Bibi Sakina, all were gone. So she returns on her own. And don't forget as well, after a mother gives birth, right? For some period, you know, 6 months to a year, they have postpartum as well, where, you know, hormones are all over the place. You know, your emotions are, you know, haywire. They're just all over. And so, you know, to go through that, the strength you would need, that she bore that strength, especially when she came back to Medina, right? Imagine everyone's greeting everybody with their families, and, you know, maybe some people have some children still left with them, but she comes on her own. So what would you say that you could tell parents or mothers or even individuals, you know, in our time, that, you know, if you're left alone, for example, you know, don't take it as a negative, because Bibi Rabab, salamullahi alayha, would have seen that as Allah's plan for her, right? This is Allah's plan for her and for her family and the life that she has to now embark upon. So what would you say to those people who sometimes get annoyed with God? Sometimes trials and tribulations happen, and they go off track as well, and that reliance on Allah isn't there. What would you tell them?
I think you hit the nail on the head there in terms of sometimes people say, "Why me, God? Oh God, why me? Why are you putting this on me?" And we have to understand that it's part of Allah's plan, part of His test. Imam Husain was given the greatest test of all. He lost everyone, all his family, all his companions. And we sometimes say, for instance, like you mentioned, how a mother would react, how Bibi Rabab reacted. In some cases, Imam Husain, she gave the responsibility of Hazrat Ali Asghar to Imam Husain and said, bring him some water, your son is dying of thirst. And he came back with a son who had an arrow through his neck. If that happened in today's day and age, what a mother would say is they'd be angry at the husband, that what have you done? But Bibi Rabab was still a support for Imam Husain. She stood with him throughout and actually calmed him, because imagine a father's point of view as well, how they said Imam Husain walked back and forth from the tent 7 times. And how he felt, how could I come in front of Bibi Rabab with a son who's now dead? So just that support that in a relationship as well with a husband and a wife, that if you're to lose a son or a daughter at such a young age, the way in which you learn from the patience that Imam Husain and Bibi Rabab showed on that day, that's the lessons that we take from Karbala. Karbala is a lesson essentially.
Absolutely, yeah.
And it applies to our everyday lives.
Absolutely. No, I mean, really, really well put. And I think the idea of having a support is really, really important. So, and again, if you see someone in your family or your friends or something going through something difficult, be that support, because they may be going through that on their own. And it's so underestimated how much that's, because one could think that, oh, what am I going to do? Well, I won't help, right? Their problems are far bigger. I've never been through the that support is just a shoulder to cry on. Give somebody your shoulder to cry on, and that will just mean everything.
Yeah, and it's understanding, obviously, we're speaking in the sense that, like, take from their lesson, you'll be fine. It's obviously, we're not downplaying the difficulty at all.
Absolutely.
But it's just, and when you're actually in the situation, it's very difficult. So just understanding that point first, and then, but being there, like you said, as a support for those people around you who go through something similar, or have similar and even within ourselves, we may not go through that specific trial, but it actually made me think when we were discussing that, this was a test, and it's incumbent on us to accept that as a test. And I think back to so many things that have been going on in my life where, perhaps I didn't see it that way. So it's a constant reminder, right? So, and we can forget. So again, like you said, being a support for those around you, not being preachy, but, reminding them that, look, you're not the only one. You're not on your own, and be a support for each other, be a help for each other. And constantly try and keep, Allah and, these stories and these lessons in the back of your mind, so that when you do get faced with something, you step into it with confidence and with strength, rather than, why me,
Sure.
kind of mentality, which is easy to fall into.
Yeah.
But I think that's the beauty of, months like this, where we renew our strength, renew our allegiance, renew our vigor, and hopefully then the aim is to carry that throughout the year. Inshallah, we pray that Allah gives us that strength to keep that strength.
Ilahi, perfect. So as we come towards the end of the show, we've got a few minutes. Just with your permission, I'll just recite a quick poem in English that I have, which is a point of view of Hazrat Ali Asghar alayhi salam, where he's saying that I am the youngest soldier, and he's realizing what he is and how he will be helping, and the tragedies that he will go through, inshallah. So with your permission, as-salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
I am the youngest soldier. I am Ali al-Asghar. I am the youngest soldier. I am Ali al-Asghar. Is there anyone left to help us? I heard my father say, just at 6 months old and unable to talk, to help I found a way. Baba, take me with you, for Allah I want to give my life on this day, my life on this day. I am the youngest soldier. I am Ali al-Asghar. Every day it would bring me peace when I was rocked to sleep, looking into my mother's glistening eyes. Never did I want her to weep, but for her to cry would be normal for a while. After she saw me bleed, she saw me bleed. I am the young youngest soldier. I am Ali al-Asghar. I am the youngest soldier. I am Ali al-Asghar. صل على محمد وآل محمد.
اللهم
Allahumma
صل
salli ala
على
Muhammad wa
محمد
ali
وآل
Muhammad wa ajil farajahum. So once again, we'd like to really thank you from the bottom of my heart for coming here today, sharing your insights and your knowledge with myself and the viewers, and I'm sure they have been inspired, and I for sure have learned. So thank you so much. And inshallah, we pray that all our ibadat is accepted. We pray that Allah rewards you for your efforts, your parents for your efforts. And inshallah, we thank you, the viewers, for tuning in. And we pray that you have also learned something from today's discussion, as have I, and I'm sure Husein and Abbasali have as well. So please do tune in tomorrow, inshallah, for our final episode of the in Karbala's Inspiring Spirits, where we, inshallah, will discuss the one and only Imam al-Husayn alayhi salam. Inshallah, with that, we will see you tomorrow. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.